We're all ready, and if you would all stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is to appoint our Debbie Ashburn as our temporary acting clerk, and as you all know, that Christina Blair will be expecting very soon, so she'll be taking her place temporarily. So I would ask the board to appoint Deborah Ashburn temporary acting clerk for the period December 3, 2013 through February 17, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
And then you say Commissioner Blair.
That's right.
You want to say that?
I beat you this time. Usually Christie's always asking me.
Yeah, it's
So-
like right like that.
Yeah. Aye.
Okay. it's just when
Aye.
Aye. Motion stands approved. The next item is for the board to approve and execute the minutes for the meeting of November 26, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Aye. Here we go.
Hey, Commissioner
Surely
Spillier.
on the first one, so.
Aye. Did you say Spindler too?
I got him first.
Oh, okay. All right, the next item is the Resolution 13-2210, itemize the financials for December 3rd, 2013, and Heidi will give us the highlights of that.
Financials today include a supplemental appropriation and an appropriation transfer for the pre-sentence investigation report fund. Put appropriations in place to repay a payroll advance to the general fund. Cash transfers out of the general fund for additional match for the FAA airport grant and a portion of 2013 funding for the Office of Community and Economic Development. Travel request for the dog warden and the Department of Job and Family Services, and a payment to Peterson Construction for the Pleasant Hill County Home Bathroom Renovation Project in the amount of $26,900.
Do I have a motion?
I moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
And Commissioner Smith?
Aye, motion stands approved. Okay, Job and Family Services, we have Paul.
Usually Anita comes up.
You have to give us the resolution. Both of them. Wait 1 minute. Paul. This, we have to get the syncopation right. No pressure.
The Department of Job and Family Services is requesting the board acknowledge 3 new hire appointments. All 3 new hires are replacements for vacancies that we had to fill. Jennifer Weinberg was hired as a social service worker 2. She has a BA in psychology and experience working at the Apple Grove Centers in Cleveland with clients in residential treatment programs. Cammie Harrison is hired as a social services supervisor 1 on their children's services assessment team. Cammie has a BA in psychology and 6 years experience working at the Ashtabula County Children's Services Board as a screening caseworker, and also worked a year for the Ashtabula County Juvenile Court as a youth intervention specialist. And the last one is Pauline Loveland. She'll be a child support case manager. She has an associate's degree in office administration and has experience working at the Ashtabula County Prosecutor's Office in the city of Geneva as an administrative assistant.
Are any of the individuals here today?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought we would recognize them, so. All right, that being the case, are there any questions of the board? Okay, would you like to read that motion?
The Department of Job and Family Services is requesting the board acknowledge the following new hire appointments of the Director of Job and Family Services, as Job and Family Services has complied with the Board of Commissioners recruitment and hiring procedures. Jennifer Weinberg, Social Services Worker 2, replacement, effective November 12, 2013. Cammie Harrison, Social Service Supervisor 1, replacement, effective December 2nd, 2013. And Pauline Loveland, child support case manager replacement effective December 9th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion stands approved. Thank you, Paul.
Thank
Transit, do we
Transit,
have Ms. Fensel?
No, I'm standing in
Okay.
for Ms. Fencelon. She's under the weather today.
Actually, Ryder.
That's right.
Yeah, we know her by two names, and
Yeah.
David, get right in step.
Let
with
me
that.
right in there, okay. Yes, Director Ryder could not be here today, and she asked me to explain to the board these next two actions. We have a driver who is resigning, Henderson Perry, and because of that, there's an opening, so we need to advertise for a position as a part-time driver. That's how the process goes.
Could read those two.
Stand together. The Department of Transit is requesting the board accept the resignation of Henderson Henry, part-time driver, number 2210-1, to be effective November 22nd, 2013. And also, the Department of Transit is requesting the board grant permission to advertise for the position of part-time driver 2210-1. This position will remain posted until filled.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spiller?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motions both stand approved. Of the Department of Water Resources, do we have Director Doug Bowen and Jerry?
Good morning. I come all the way to the front to get a seat.
I know.
It's a good seat, not hot, but good.
The first item here is an expansion of the direct service agreement we have with the city of Cleveland for the properties along County Line Road, the properties in Russell. We have an agreement that covers the initial agreement covered all of the properties along County Line Road in Chester. Russell has chosen to do it on a property by property basis, so as each property owner wants to tie into the water line, they request the trustees to request the commissioners to expand the direct service agreement to add those parcels. And this is adding one of the parcels south of Dines Road.
Okay. You don't need that one, Sure.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve and execute the memorandum of understanding between the city of Cleveland and Geauga County for the fifth expansion of the water service agreement for direct service, Cleveland contract number 54732 in Russell Township.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
And Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motions stand approved. Next item, expansion of the master meter agreement.
Correct. The next item is the expansion of the master meter agreement for our water system within Bainbridge Township. We purchased the water from the city of Cleveland through their lines that bring it to the county. We have a master meter at the county line, that then we are in control of the water line. On our side, we have the agreement to expand that, to have an agreement for providing service to certain areas within the county, within Bainbridge Township. That includes Canyon Lakes, Country Lane, up to Knowles Industrial Park, Washington, and 306 area. This is a requested expansion to add the Volproco property, which is between Savage Road and Tulip Lane. That was a subject of a judgment entry, a judgment agreement between the property owner and the township, and part of that agreement was that the township would request the county to allow water service to that property. And in addition to that, there's one other property that's included on this, which is the English property at the south end of English Drive, south of Bainbridge Road.
So wasn't
That
that
was
the
a
one
single-
where the problems were?
That is the one where the gas well is located,
Right.
that was the gas expansion to the properties down there that it caused the water line to be expanded. And this is the property owner or somebody building on that wants to have water to their house. Pain is the building.
Builder. Would you like to read that?
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve and execute the memorandum of understanding between the city of Cleveland and Geauga County for the eighth expansion of the master meter agreement, Cleveland contract number 46866 in Bainbridge Township.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye, motion stands approved. We have one more here.
Yep. And this one's for increasing the service contract with CUE Excavating by $2,500. And this is to install the hydrant. Remember during the summer, that one gentleman that hit our hydrant that caused our water service to go
right.
down? Yeah.
Right.
So we finally got the hydrant ordered, and so this would be to install it. And the money, again, is going to his insurance company to get reimbursed for that. So it's increasing the current service contract we have by $2,500 so we can get the work done.
What do they do in the meantime? When this
Well,
over?
they just cap up the hydrant
They
off,
cap
so there's, yeah, so the hydrant, the base of the stub is right there. So now that the hydrant comes in, they can put the actual hydrant back on top
Okay,
of it.
so we just, all right.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve and execute service contract maintenance form number 2, increasing the contract with CUE Excavating Contractors LLC for additional hydrant repairs in the amount of $2,500.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spillier? And Commissioner Smith?
Aye, motion stands approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. As soon as the gentlemen here are done signing, I would ask that we just start our discussion. This is in regards to the city of Chardon for the residential incentive district. And this district is off Wilson Mills, and there's a whole lot of information here that needs to be disseminated. Additionally, I believe our auditor is going to explain how levies work and how this would affect those who do have levies. But I would ask each one of you, when you speak, give your name and where you're from. For example, if you're from Chardon, say you're from Chardon, if you're from Bainbridge. I don't think anyone from Bainbridge is here, but in the event you're from some other place, please let us know who you are, because that will go into our record in our journal. So as soon as Blake is done here, who would like to begin this discussion?
Well, you want Frank to kind of give you a
Yeah,
overview?
probably Frank would talk about what happens to a levy when something like this, when a RID goes into place.
With the help of my office as well as the commissioner's office, we put together some charts there. We do have some for,
Is this what
keep it on here. I do have some copies, not a lot. There were 2 of them.
Oh, were there two?
What I've distributed is a brief overlook of what the RID will do in Geauga County. And the yellow section here depicts all the departments that will not be getting any money from the RID as we walk through this process. The significant issue here is we took this out 55 years, and at the bottom line, the city RID distribution will be about $10.4 million. The county will be short $12 million. The general fund will be short $2.5 million. The Department of Aging will lose about $1 million. The health department, $201,000. The Geauga County DD will lose $3.1 million. The engineer's office will be just short of $1 million. JFS is $704,000. The GC mental health, $1.2 million, and the park systems will lose $2.3 million over this same 55-year period. One of the things that I would request from the city is do what they did in Delaware County, where they just did 30 years. You start on day one and you go for 30 years, and at the end of that, the RID is done. Because what's going to happen if you ask me to maintain these numbers on every one of those houses past 30 years, that really is an independent TIF. And I'm not sure I have the software or the wherewithal to do that electronically. Of course, I might be dead by 55 years from now, but let's hope we're all still here. But if we're all still here, I'm not sure I can ensure that you're getting the right and the proper amount of money. And I would request that you rethink this process that says, we're gonna go for 30 years, and then the last house that's built in these subdivisions, that now goes for 30 years. That's really not gonna help the county at all, because it's going to put an extra burden on us. And I'm worried that I will not be able to accurately depict how much money you're going to get. So I would request that you at least think about just doing, if you're gonna do the RID, just do 30 years. Now the RID, all the levies that are passed, like Mary said, I understand that the city of Chardon has made the schools whole, so the schools will get their money. I calculate that over a 30-year period, will be something like $1.4 million. So that's a significant amount of money over 3 years. I'm not sure, when I look at these numbers, that you're going to be able to withstand that kind of money to the school processes. So, but I'm sure you worked that out already with the school district. Any levy that's passed during this period of time, if it's will not be going to, if there's a levy passed in Chardon for the school district, that'll be an increase in your agreement with them that they should get somewhere along the line that says, these are the monies that I'm actually, an additional I'm going to get in order to keep them whole. I would also be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that these RIDs are really for blighted areas. And I realize that we have so much blighted area in Geauga County that we really need to put this in motion. I'm being facetious on that. Obviously, we don't have any blighted areas, but we're working on a solution here that I'm not sure is needed. When I look and I talk to the auditor, I talk to the treasurer about your tax collections, the city of Chardon, you're at 98% collection of all your taxes, which is one of the highest in the county. So I'm not sure where the tax dollar benefit is needed at this point in time. As I look at the graph that you presented several weeks ago to me in reference to the blighted area, or the areas where we're going to, the areas where we're going to actually build these 500 homes. I have no idea what the situation is going to be and how fast those homes will be built. 500 homes is a significant amount of homes, especially in the area of Chardon where there's infrastructure cost. That's got to be obviously absorbed by this RID. That's why you're doing the RID. What else can I answer for you?
I would just say that the RID affects the new homes, not the old. So those that are on the levies of the old homes will not be affected. You have to understand, it's like Frank said, the 500 new homes. But the problem is with levy monies, for example, I think the library has a levy. I think there's several levies throughout the county, and we as county commissioners have to look at the entire county. The city is very important to us. Please do understand that. But understand also that every single department that has a levy that is county-wide will be affected for that duration. And if you have 500 homes, and let's say the first 100 start on year 1, okay, those go out to 30. Now if 10 years later 100 more homes come out, then they start, that's year 1 for them, and then that goes out for 30 years.
And I'm strongly suggesting we don't do that.
And that's what Frank is
I'm
trying
strongly suggesting we don't do that. I'm suggesting that we get to day 1 and we go for 30 years. And whatever happens at the end of 30 years, it happens. Because it really will be a nightmare for my staff, along with the treasurer's staff, to be able to manage that correctly for you. And I just want to make sure that you understand my plea to you is to just go for the 30 years on the entire RID. Right, question?
Yeah, 2 questions. Could you go over those held harmless numbers with the school district again? I thought I heard you say 3 years. Did you say 3 or 30?
30.
And how much? And you
I've got
said
50, we got 55 years here. We just did 55.
Okay, but you said 1 point some million.
Well,
I think that,
I just took the 5.7 mil levy for the city of Chardon and said we got 500 homes times the existing rate
And what did that number turn out to be?
of 1.4
Per year.
uh,
I think it's per year.
per year.
Yeah,
Okay, I was
per
gonna
year.
say, it seemed awfully
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
when you look at that, when you look at those numbers, it's a significant amount of money.
And then my next question is, and you alluded to this with going from 0 to 30 instead of 0 to 55. With both you and the treasurer's office,
Well, I have to
it's gonna cause untold nightmares as far as the accounting and reporting procedures. And you're gonna have to pay for that, we're gonna have to pay for that, the county is,
There's a cost of
With-
doing business.
with no additional funding.
Right. I'm calculating that it's gonna cost me one additional person to help manage this going forward. Now, you might say, well, can't you manage that with only your existing staff? Sure, but now I'm managing 25 houses this year. Next year, I'm handling another 50 houses. All that's gotta be contained within the RID TIF, if you will. And each time, and I'm not sure that my software, the MVP software, can handle every time I add a new house and I don't add any, I say I add 2 more houses in year 31. That's another TIF for me, another tracking mechanism for me. I'm not sure I can do that without doing it manually. And that's a significant amount of work for me to track to make sure you get your money correctly. And I'm all about the accuracy on the money, and you'll appreciate that. But I'm not going to give you $5 more than you should get, or $10 less than you should get. I want to make sure that the dollar figure is correct. And I'm not sure at the year 32, we're going to be able to do that accurately. Now, maybe in 30 years, some new software will come, and they say, oh, this is going to fix all the RIDs and TIFs in the world, and we'll be fine. But I haven't seen that. I haven't seen it yet. Could happen.
So you're advocating if this would go in, well, if they're gonna put it in place, you're advocating for a 30-year
30-year TIF, just like
overall, no matter what.
Now, the
So
other,
if house number 500 starts on year 30,
the
they're only gonna get that
the
year.
other blighted area in Ohio is Powell. It's just right outside of Columbus. And you know that's not a blighted area. They've got $350,000 homes in that area. But they were able to do the RIDs as well, but they only did it for 30 years. They started in 2005, and they're going to go for 30 years until that point's done. I think that's the correct way to process this. I think that's the logical way to execute this in the future. So the men in this room who have to make that decision, please give that a lot of consideration. But I think that's the most logical way to do this.
And then additionally, thinking of all of the various organizations that have levies out there now and how difficult it is to pass a levy. Think of the monies that they are losing. Your libraries, your health districts, JFS, we can go, our road department. We don't want to have to put a levy on for roads. We've had one levy and that's worked. So
Well,
we have to think of all of these
In the
things.
city, you've got your own road department, so you'll be plowing the roads and handling that. The school buses that'll be coming in there will be handled by, you're keeping the schools whole, so that's another issue. It's not going to be a problem. The problem lies in how do we handle the Department of Aging services for those 500 residents? Do they fall into your RID or do they fall into Sally's support? Does Sally need to support those people going forward if we're not getting any money to help support them? Right, as far as Department of Aging is concerned, we got 500 more people to take care of, or maybe 2, maybe 1,000 more people to take care of. How do I do that with no additional cost and services? The library in Chardon is going to have to handle that too. They're going to have to look at that as far as they're not going to be able to handle the expansion for that.
Mental disabilities, certainly Don Rice, who has extended his levy well over 5 years past the time it would have ended, has done a magnificent job in keeping that money in place and not asking the taxpayers for anything. How's he gonna do it? I mean, we can go down the list. That's where
When
we're
you
asking for
When you get into the RID process and you determine that you've got more than enough money, if that's ever a possibility, if you get to the point where you understand that you have more than enough money and you only want to do this for 15 years at 100%, and you want to do Or maybe 15 years at 75 or 100% for 15 years, and then after that, you're only going to do 25 or 50 or 75%. This way, you're giving some of that money back to the people who desperately will need that at that point in time.
Ms. O'Connor, would you want to speak? I see that you're giving me she's the director of the library system, Charlie?
I'm Deborah O'Connor, Director of Geauga County Library. We have a very successful, popular library right in Chardon on the square. I've spoken a little bit to the library board officers about this. I feel kind of like an ostrich with my head in the sand because I really wasn't aware that this was happening, and I was surprised. I usually kind of have my finger on the pulse of what's happening that could affect the library or anybody else in the county. I think the part that I believe we should be looking at, and I hope Chardon City does look at this, is I think there are three important things involved in this. The first is communication, and I feel a little left out of the loop, that if you're doing something that will greatly increase my use, and it will increase the use, so if I figure only a mom and a dad in each of those 500 homes, that's 1,000 people, which is about a 20% increase in the population of Chardon. Also, I've lived in Chardon for 28 years. I live in the township, not the city. And I have been told over the years, why all this growth? And now that we're inviting growth, it seems counterintuitive to me. So communication is the first thing that I think would be helpful. The second thing is transparency. I think when everybody understands what's happening, and there's an opportunity for everybody to see how it affects important services in the county, what the future will be, and we have a chance to tell you our real story about library or about parks, or Don's here for MRDE, DD. Well, you know, that's the third thing. And the second thing, and my third issue, is planning. You know, we're planning all the time. I know the old models of 5 and 10 and 15-year plans are gone, but in fact, to plan this size increase in any one of my communities has a significant impact on the infrastructure that I need to provide. The Chardon Library is 17,000 square feet. It is too small right now. We have been exploring our options. We talk to our neighbors all the time because frankly we want to stay on Chardon Square. To be honest, if we get much more push on that library, we can't handle it and we can't move on our current site. I don't want to leave Chardon Square. I love the fact that people in the city can walk to the library, and I know people in the townships all drive to the library. But I love the fact that people can do that, and I think we're going to be shooting ourselves, you know, in the foot to do this kind of thing with the increased use that we'll have. Finally, I think that the 100% and then 10% and 50% proposal that the city has come up with is a little overreaching. If you take 100%, when we will be feeling an immediate impact once these homes are built. And I tell you, this is a little bit like a field of dreams. They move in, they will come. If there are more people in Chardon that come to our library, we have the highest per capita circulation of any of the 88 counties in Ohio. For every man, woman, child, they borrow 25 books, and the state average is 15 and the national average is 6. So when people move to a community like Chardon, they move to Geauga County, they are people who like to read. So I would really appreciate, I don't know how quickly you've scheduled this to happen, but I really think that many of us who are going to have a direct impact on trying to provide services to more people that we can barely provide now in the footprint that we have and with the staff we have and the materials we need to purchase, would love to be at the table with you and explain why. I know Frank's got his issues of what his software will do. I got issues of how we're going to pay for this, how we're going to be able to fit people into the Chardon Library if we have to expand greatly. And let me tell you, we do. We're greatly undersized there. We have the largest population of any of our branches is the Chardon population. And because we're landlocked, my library board has put it on the back burner. We want to stay on the square, but we can't stay on the square at all costs. And the other issue is we're looking to build in Bainbridge because we need more space, and they have even less population, although a much smaller library. So those are my concerns. Communication, transparency, and planning. You know, all these things need to be done.
Very important. And, Mr. Rice, would you like to speak to the DD board?
I guess I have lots of questions. I'm kind of like Debbie said, the ostrich in the sand. I'm coming with more questions than I have really a whole lot of answers. My understanding is we're looking at 3 vacant lots that we're considering blighted or using blighted land.
Blighted.
But the issue is there's vacant lots, so the developer steps in and normally puts in the roads, puts in the infrastructure. I'm surprised that the city's stepping up to do this. And I'm curious who owns the lot, and who's gonna benefit from it. You know, it's one thing to have a developer step up and put in houses and charge new purchasers and those type of things. It's another to simply turn around and enrich somebody by paying for the roads and the other infrastructure that goes in that normally is picked up by a developer.
That's a good point. Mr. Claypool?
Skip Claypool from Mayfield. I have a question for the audience. Does anybody here know what we're talking about? Does everybody know what we're talking about? Why don't we ask the mayor, because we're talking about a very complex thing here. And I don't think, generally speaking, people in this room know what we're even talking about. Some of us do, but I don't think that the majority of the people in this room know. If you don't, I'd like to hear an explanation from the mayor what we're talking about.
Mayor King, would you like to just come up and?
I think I'd rather have Randy and Matt with me, our finance director, before I move from my seat. This is your meeting. We're here to listen to you discuss this. For those of you that are here to share with the board, I would encourage the library, MRDD, to appear before council. You know that we meet, I believe, second Thursday of every month. December's meeting, the second Thursday, we will be considering the legislation. I would encourage you to appear before all of council and ask questions of 7 members, not just 3 that are here. So that's my first statement. As far as explaining the RID, I think it would be very important for Matt,
Randy.
our finance person, as you had Frank
Yeah.
explain what a RID is. If Matt, you're prepared to
Matt, if you'd like to do that?
share with that, you and Randy?
Well, we also have Virginia Benjamin here, who's our counsel, who's probably the most versed and able to explain that.
Well, Virginia, which one is Virginia? You're elected.
I'm elected, okay, thank you. I'm Virginia Benjamin from Calfee, Halter, and Griswold. And what the city is proposing is 3 incentive districts, which allow the redirection of the increase in real property taxes resulting from development to pay for infrastructure improvements. So, and it's not necessarily a blighted area. One of the criteria for establishing an incentive district is that an engineer certifies that the existing infrastructure is not sufficient for the proposed development. And so what would happen is that the taxes resulting from an increase in the assessed value of these properties would be diverted to a fund to pay for the infrastructure. That's essentially what's being discussed. I would like to point out that any new levy money, any money derived from new levies voted after the effective date of the creation of the incentive district would go to the agencies for whom that levy was approved. So they're not taking away new levy money. But it does allow the growth in the area to pay for the cost of that growth through infrastructure improvements.
But now, I just wanted to mention, to buttress up to what Don Rice had said, being part of the Planning Commission for many, many years, we have found that every time there's a new plat put in and we go through the process of the planning, that the developer does pick up those costs of the road infrastructure. And I know Chardon put in a new water system that they were forced to do for their arsenic, but that has been done. So I guess that is a question that we probably would need to answer.
The projects that are funded by the RID, there's 2 sewer lines. One which is up from Wilson Knolls all the way to Water Street.
To Water Street?
And then the other, which is called the Railroad Trunk Sewer, starts up by the Highway Patrol here, and basically goes down through the city, wraps around, and then goes over by the golf course. Both those are lines needed for the city of Chardon. They're not being built for any kind of developer. Developers will be able to tap into them like they do any other trunk lines that you have. So we're not building projects for developers. And that's what we stated when we were here about 6 weeks ago.
So your
A lot of
plant's
this is
big
the same.
enough, but your pipelines aren't? Is that what you're saying?
What's the question there?
Are you saying that your plant is large enough, but your pipelines aren't?
Our pipelines don't exist.
They don't exist?
Well, in one area, we need to put new, totally new. In the
Okay.
other, we need to upsize some and then put new as well. But
Okay.
the plant was sized for the entire city.
Yeah,
at
right,
that
that's what I
build.
thought.
The other two projects that some of the residue fund as well are road projects. Wilson Mills, which is an existing road that needs to be improved. Part of that is reprofiling those hills that are on Wilson Mills and putting an intersectional light at that corner of Park and Wilson Mills. And then the other is the Meadowlands extension of the road. So again, it's the two roads that will be affected by those developments that are there. I think it's important to realize that the monies that are coming in today do not change for any of the departments. So they're not losing anything. And in actuality, once that infrastructure is there and people move in, then after 10 years, granted, they'll start to receive money. But had that infrastructure not been put in, there would never be any kind of increase because there would never be anybody to be able to build there.
However, as people do come in, that does put pressure on the community for more services,
Agreed.
of which we all know. And for us to lose that, as Ms. Connor said, they would lose so much money if they needed a bigger library and there's more people, and so
But
it's.
this is an economic development tool, as I stated the last time we were here, that's been in the ORC, which is obviously very permissible for most municipalities, counties, and townships to do. This is just the first time it's been in Geauga County, so that's why it's an unusual discussion there.
Yeah. Mr.
So
Mr.
back to,
Okay,
was that an adequate explanation from our
I think,
legal
does
counsel?
everyone understand what it is?
So the challenge gets to be that the county's being asked to subsidize the loss because the dollars for the infrastructure are gonna go towards paying off the infrastructure, which would normally go into the county.
Right.
And so therefore, we're gonna be subsidizing a decision that Chardon has made. The county will subsidize Chardon's decision. Is that what I understand correctly?
I don't think subsidy is, I think that's an artful use of a word, depending on your position with this. This is diverting tax dollars to allow us to develop property, to bring new homeowners and new residents to the community and sharing in that tax dollar. Is that a fair way to, it's not subsidizing growth in the cities.
I think that the point that Randy just made, that all of the existing tax revenues from those properties will stay with the current distribution of those among the county and the school district and the city and other taxing districts. It's the incremental increase that will be redirected, if you will, and used for the infrastructure purposes. So, you know, that.
And the incremental increase would be obviously when, if the land is undeveloped, then once the land is made into a subdivision, and once the land is developed. In other words, once a house is put on the land.
And value.
So any increases in value will be captured by the retail.
Per the astute question, gentleman, honorable gentleman next.
Mr. Flays, you wanted to speak? Our attorney?
I had a
Prosecutor.
question. Wouldn't this land be developed anyway? I mean, the one piece of property in question, Jerry Peterson's already started developing it. He already has a phase of homes built. Why would we do this giveaway to the developer for the remaining land behind his development that he's already started? Wouldn't that be developed anyway without this money being diverted from the county?
I can't answer that question.
And I think that's a valid question.
Jim, what do you mean by giveaway to the developer? This
Excuse me?
doesn't go to the developer.
Well, you're gonna be making improvements so that he can put additional
His
phases
improvements
of
are
his.
there. The only improvements we can make with that money are the ones that I just outlined.
Well, you're talking about the sewer line, so
That's
does that
not his
affect
sewer
that
line.
property?
That's a different sewer.
The trunk sewer line? That doesn't
His sewer
affect
line's
it?
already
It
in.
doesn't
So
exist.
if you're not,
We would not build his.
if you're not putting any of those,
Pointed out.
if you're not putting any of those improvements towards Jerry's development, then why is his development included? Why is that tax
Because
money
they
being
benefit
diverted?
from the sewer line that's above him, which is the one that this is.
So you are benefiting?
No, he, in no way benefits.
Then why would you include
That,
properties?
it's part
Doesn't
of
make
that
sense.
line. It goes, flow through there, which is why those homes can pay for part of it.
Okay.
But it doesn't go to Mr. Peterson in any shape or form.
So it doesn't benefit his development, but you're diverting money from his development from the county
that
to the
line,
city?
because that's part of that reason for that sewer district.
Oh, okay.
That make sense?
Blake Rare would like to.
I just have a couple
points that I want to try to get clarified. I am relatively new to this, and, you know, I know I've heard folks from the city say before that the city is in the county. Well, the city's in the county, but that's a two-way street. It works both ways. The city is in the county. Now, this will not affect the current city residents, is that correct? Their taxes will remain the same, and the county will receive the benefit of the current city residents' taxes. So I say expansion, this expansion does not favor current city residents. Is that correct? They'll be held the same
For
as...
consistency's sake, we'll either let Gigi or Randy answer that question.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to find out, when we talk about this and we say the city and the county, we're talking about that as it's two different entities. But on one side of this, we're all going to be treated the same, whether you live in the county or whether you're a current resident of the city. Is that not correct? Because the only people who will be affected is the 500 homes of people who don't live here.
Perhaps I can answer it this way, that existing property tax revenues and property tax increases from existing homes and businesses in the city will not be diverted. It is the incremental increase from new development.
Okay, then I have that concept right. So then my question is, if it doesn't favor the city residents, you know, who does it benefit? It benefits either developers or people who, and actually the people who move into these 500 homes, they're still going to pay the same amount of tax that's assessed to their
correct.
property. So, except for the income tax that may be generated by the people that move into the homes, I don't understand.
I think as Randy explained, there are infrastructure improvements, new sewer pipes and enlargement of sewer pipes that will be needed as a result of new development, as well as road improvements that will benefit not only new residents but existing residents in the city with enlarged, with additional sewer capacity and improved roads.
But did he not say that was going to happen anyway, with or without the RID? The city was going to do that. I thought did I hear you say that these are things that were going to be done anyway?
They're part of the capital plan for the city, and this RID is part of the financing mechanism for those.
Their plan is whether or not the city, if I may, has the ability to finance those. The areas that we are proposing for RIDs currently have no infrastructure improvements to them. We are obligated as part of our city operations to make the land usable best we can afford and the best that we can maintain. We have several areas which these don't have any sewer availability at all. And our responsibility to the landowners and the city is to bring infrastructure to those areas. Wilson Mills Road is the last area in the city of Chardon that has no improvement. We have an industrial area on Water Street that has no sewer capability. We can't draw commerce or industrial users to Parker Court because there's no sewer connections beyond what exists there. This is all for, and I'm all for understanding bringing new residents. I would love to say we're in existence to keep our population at $5,000 so it doesn't affect the library. But that's not possible. We have a city that is capable of growing and being managed in a healthy way. So these, Blake, are areas that currently don't have improvement. And we need to find ways to finance that improvement. Now, as I understand matters, we can either pass the costs off to the users of the sewer system, and they increase their rates, they fund it. This is a very beneficial way for the county and the city to develop areas because we'll all benefit. We're not the first ones that have used this. So it is a tool that others are using and looking at to not increase the tax burden on the residents, but use taxes that are currently there, diverting them temporarily so that everybody can improve from them. That's the theory behind this.
And the theory, while it may be there and in your favor as a city, I guess our question is, you know, the extent of it. Do we go out 55, 60 years, or do we keep it at 30 years from start to finish? I mean, I think that's the question that your council has to look at. And to be totally fair to all those who do have levies, and I see Mr. Jim Adams in the back with mental health, I think you should say a few words.
Before you go, you brought up a very good issue. I would invite that either Frank Galea, MRDD, the library, when we're considering this, your agenda right now is for you to get information.
Right, right.
I think the same people that are speaking to you, if they have questions and concerns about our legislation, need to address all 7 members of council
I agree.
in a session just like this.
Yeah, I agree.
That dialogue needs to take place.
And we want something that's going to be fair for you and fair for us and fair for all of those in Geauga County, because there are almost 95,000 people that we answer to. And while Chardon, like I said, it is important to us.
And you're part of that
And we're all part of it. And if that can be considered, I think it'd go a long way. Mr. Adams, do you want to say something?
I appreciate I'm Jim Adams, excuse me, I'm the director at the Mental Health and Drug and Alcohol Board for Geauga County. I appreciate the offer, Phil, to come and talk to Chardon City Council. We've had an ongoing relationship, obviously, for years and years and years. I think one of my concerns is that as this impacts a long-term process, the reality is people are still going to be needing services from ongoing. And so what you've really done is you've spread the burden of the cost for those services to the people that currently live in Chardon, and that will simply mean a reduction in services to all those individuals that are currently receiving services, because there's no increase in income to help offset the number of people that are being brought into the city of Chardon. So actually, everybody in Chardon that is currently utilizing services in any of our agencies is going to see a reduction in those services, because you spread the burden throughout the entire county. And actually, when you look at utilization of services for the 5,000 that are in Chardon City alone, they are overutilizing compared to the rest of the population, in part because of the availability of services in Chardon to that population. So the percent of individuals in the Chardon City area that are utilizing the services, whether it be DD, whether it be mental health, whether it be drug and alcohol services, library, actually overutilize services because of the centrally located county services that are here.
And I'd also like to add, our sheriff is not here, and the monies that we allocate to our sheriff's department does come from our overall budget. And that has increased over the years for a variety of reasons, and he has put money in from the safety center, from putting up inmates there. So that's going to affect him too, because that would mean we would have a little bit less money to allocate to our safety center. And that's important. That's important to all of us. I mean, I don't think there's a person here that would discount that. I see Miss Bell looks like she wants to say something. She's our Department of Aging Director.
Hi folks, Sally Bell, Geauga Department on Aging. I'm excited. I live in the city of Chardon. I appreciate the fact that council is looking at ways to provide stability and growth for the city. But I really hope that in their analysis, they're looking at all the services that are available to all the residents. We know that about 33% of the residents of Chardon are over the age of 60. And we know that at the Department on Aging, we are maxed out in our ability to provide services to the residents of Geauga County who are over the age of 60. We also know that we provide services without regard to income. So those new homes and the people who can afford to live in those homes will all still qualify for services. But without the revenue coming from their real estate taxes, it'll be impossible for us to continue to provide all the services that we provide. And the things that I think that council needs to consider is how are they going to get to doctor's appointments out of the county to see that heart specialist down at the Cleveland Clinic. How are they gonna get grocery shopping when they need to be able to do that? How are they gonna participate in the farm market program? Or how are they gonna even get to the senior centers? And those are critical, important things for people who live isolated lives. I too will join Jim and the rest of my colleagues to present this to the entire council. But I think when we start looking at shifting dollars, it's critical that we look at the effect of all those dollars on our residents' lives. And though it may seem like it's only 500 homes and the effect of the lives of those people, it really is the effect of the lives of all of your current residents too. So I hope you'll consider that.
I would ask at this time that our county engineer explain to us the effect it might have on our roads and bridges, who he's very responsible for.
Yeah, it will have some impact. As Auditor Glea showed us, there's about $1 million in lost revenue to the roads and bridges. I actually think I heard it in here once that we're gonna build our own roads and take care of them, so it didn't matter. I'd find it hard for anybody to get into Chardon or to leave Chardon without being on a county road and bridge, so that kind of came off a little wrong in my opinion. But you know, in what we do, I mean, the county engineer, we haven't asked for an increase in our road levy since it was created back in the 80s. So what we've done is we've operated with, in essence, the same levy while we've watched the asphalt prices and the fuel prices, which are obviously very important to what we do, have gone up over 4 times since that levy was created. So as you bring more people in that are driving down the infrastructure, it's gonna cause damage to the infrastructure that needs fixed. 500 homes cause a lot of trips. You know, the homes are generating roughly 6 to 7 trips per home per day. So if you do the math, that's, you know, turns into millions of trips on our roads that do take the abuse. And as those homes are built, even just in that process, all the trucks that come in and out of the county on our roads and bridges, carrying those materials, is substantial.
Ms. Paul?
Paul Ryan, I'm the Assistant Director at Job Family Services. At a time where we're experiencing unparalleled growth in the number of in-home placements for our children's services, we've seen our monthly costs go from about $30,000 on average a month to over $80,000. So we're already struggling financially, and we know that that's something that we have to deal with. But looking forward and knowing that we have, you know, so many children that we take into our custody and so many referrals that we have to deal with, adding 500 new homes to the city of Chardon really affects the whole county. If you were to extrapolate and figure out, okay, based on our census numbers for the number of occupied housing units and the number of children in the county, we could expect about 353 new children added to the county with these 500 new homes. Looking at what that impact would have on our children's services levy, we figured based on our current expenditures that would add about $55,000 to $58,000 per year to our expenditures. We're already struggling. So to add this additional amount would make it even more difficult for us going forward. And I think I'm going to speak to what Jim was saying. The other thing we see is that the city of Chardon has a higher usage of our children's services. In fiscal year 2013, 33% of our total out-of-home placements were from the city of Chardon. And in calendar year 2012, 27% of our total referrals that we had to look into came from the city of Chardon. So this additional burden without the additional revenue to help us handle this influx would be, I mean, it already is detrimental, but it would spread those expenditures to other people in the county because we still have to provide these services to protect children.
Do we have any other comment, sir?
Hi, my name is Matt Rakonchik. I'm the finance director for the city.
Please stand up.
The focus about the RIDS has been on the money being diverted from the property taxes, the increase in valuation. I just wanted to mention that, I mean, there's no way to predict it, but this county should be able to see growth through additional sales tax that will be coming into the county through having additional homes being developed, people living in those homes. You know, I think the county would realize some growth in sales tax revenue. So I just wanted to mention that there's no way to predict exactly what that would be, but that is a part of the concept between using the RIDS is benefiting the county through the increased sales tax revenue.
And conversely, you could add that the 2% that these individuals would pay would then directly go to the city of Chardon also.
If they
So they would benefit
if they work
from.
in the city, if they don't, it'd be the 1%.
Yes.
I have one other question that I have not heard any number. I'm sure it's out there, and I may get spanked for this. I don't know, but the project cost. These numbers that Auditor Dalia gave us are projections, and based on this many homes and that many homes, and obviously these numbers will change if the development they build more than 20 a year or they build less than 20 a year. But an estimated cost of what you're trying to put into the city with regard to the sewer lines, these major lines and so on and so forth, there must be a cost. And even if a RID is necessary, let's say, whatever it happens, and is it going to cover the cost? Is it going to exceed the cost? We have a projection, and again, these are projections here. Well, I understand when you get an estimate on what the sewer is going to cost, or the projections are going to cost. At what point in time, if ever, do you start to exceed what you spent, and then it becomes a revenue stream, a positive revenue stream? Does anybody? I mean, is that?
One comment, and that is that to the extent that monies exceed the amount necessary to pay for infrastructure improvements that are authorized, that would be authorized by the ordinance, they can't be spent for anything else. They can't just go into the city's general fund.
Okay, so where does the money go? Do they just put more sidewalks in, or what do they do? I mean, once it's developed and then they have extra money and it's earmarked for this project, where does the money go? Does it either this thing terminate, or do they have X number of dollars that they buy better street lights or better signposts, or at what point does
I
don't know how to
I
say.
understand your question. The ordinance provides for a variety of public infrastructure improvements that would be necessary as a result of increased development. I think Randy's identified what they are, and I honestly can't recall whether there are others included in there that are not. They're not. Okay.
Yeah.
So the ordinance provides that when those infrastructure improvements have been fully paid for, the incentive district would terminate. This is not, the city has no ability to take any excess money and just put it in
So
their
it's strictly
general
used
fund.
as a financing tool
Yes.
for what they
Yes, sir.
want to do. The next obvious question there is, how is that tracked, and what is the I mean, we heard Frank Alia and talked about him and Hitchcock and the accounting issues that may probably
The money
will
is-
develop. That's just another accounting issue that has to be dealt with.
Well, from the city standpoint, when they receive the service payments from the TIF revenues, if you will, from the county, they must deposit it into a separate fund, which is created by the ordinance, and that money cannot be used for any purpose other than the infrastructure improvements identified in the ordinances. So the city has no ability, and obviously that's checked by the county audit, the state audit every year to make sure that they're using money in the various funds properly.
But there's no finish line Yes.
There would be a finish line that Matt, or whoever our finance person is, when that project is, the payments are terminated and the project is complete, that would be a final point. I can tell you sidewalks are not part of that, I've already asked.
Oh, that was just an example. I mean,
I can assure you we can't do sidewalks.
yeah, I told you I was gonna get spanked. I didn't know, at what point in time.
So there's really no provision
Because-
in that RID that says, okay, we've done the sewers, we've done everything we need, okay, we got another 5 years on this to go, we're not gonna need that money. There's no provision that says it'll cut it off at the angle.
Actually, there is.
There
The
is?
legislation
Well, that's what I
says
think
Yeah.
Blake
that
wants.
it's used to pay for public, it goes for 30 years and ends on the earlier of the 30 years or the time in which the public infrastructure improvements have been fully funded.
Yeah, that's what and please, nobody take any personal offense at any of this discussion, because 30 years from now, there's only a couple people in the room that are going to be here, or we're going to be not using Sally Bell's department. It's just. Discussion needs to be had in my mind.
And I agree, I want to make sure you get an answer, because that is a very important question. So the city's not getting rich by diverting the money.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm hearing, and I know Matt and Gigi have expressed to us, when the projects are done, those collections have to terminate, we can't collect anymore.
Yeah, well, that's.
And
I
the
mean,
project
that's-
would not include upgrades or maintenance of those.
It's only for infrastructure improvements.
Direct and indirect costs.
It can
Indirect
include-
costs like.
Go ahead.
It can include maintenance. It's-
Yeah.
Cannot, no, cannot.
You said cannot.
I'm sorry, cannot. If you heard me wrong, cannot include maintenance.
Oh, cannot.
Cannot include
Okay,
maintenance.
that's good,
So
we got that.
construction.
Phil, do you have
Right.
preliminary figures as far as what the sewers are gonna cost?
Yes, we do. They're rough estimates. I don't know that we're prepared to share what those costs are we? I know that Wilson Mills Road is in the, $3 to $5 million range just for road improvements in that intersection, so it's substantial.
So you're planning to take the curve out or something?
Well, we're straightening it and punching that road through, but I don't have the
You
exact.
gonna put sidewalks
figures.
in,
Do
you know?
Do we have?
There's sidewalks down
The
there.
rail- the railroad trunk sewer project alone is a little over $3 million.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Claypool.
I don't know if the question was ever answered, but it was asked before. Why not a private solution versus the government solution?
Private solution meaning private developers doing
Yeah,
it.
once you work with private developers, that's been done for decades and solve this problem that way rather than use a government answer.
These, as I understand it, and I'll defer to Randy and Gigi, these are not improvements that we can pass on to a developer. These are city responsibilities, clear and legally, or we wouldn't be doing it. We don't have, developers need the city, and the city's obligated to provide sewer and road services. So Wilson Mills Road cannot be passed on the improvements for the people that use it, because you just legally, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
If the city were, and we went through this with the Meadowlands extension, the city is mandating that that road go through that property in that location. If the city did not mandate that, we wouldn't have been forced to buy that property. If we allowed the owners of that property to put the roads wherever they wanted, they are responsible for their own improvements, but we had the mandate that the road had to go exactly through where it needed to, because we needed the collector street in that location. Developers are responsible for their own subdevelopment improvements. These are getting those services to that land. We cannot charge the developer to provide what we are obligated by statute to provide. Did I answer that?
So Mayor, may I get this clarified, just so I understand, my colleagues? When we put a sewer plant in Geauga County, if I'm wrong, someone mentioned, we pass that cost on to those who tie in. But there's no ordinance or anything coming down from the legislature that tells us that the county has to pay for it. So we pass that cost on to those who would tie in. And then we stretch it out for maybe 30 years. And I have all of those figures of every plant we've got, and I know when they end and when they start. Okay, so what you're saying then is the city, unlike the county, is mandated to pay for those sewer and road improvements.
Get the sewers to those.
I mean, that is a law.
That's my
Is that what you
understanding,
say?
unless I'm.
I mean, I just wanna know why we can as the county and you can't as.
We do assess the individuals once they tie in.
The tie-in cost?
Right, we do assess
See, that's how we
those.
pay off our plans.
But we have to get the sewers to that location. And we don't have
But we
the
do-
sewer
we
line to
do
those
too.
locations.
Yeah, we also do. I still, David, I'd like
Correct.
to know that answer.
Yeah.
If you can find it.
Mary,
Yeah, I'd like to understand that a little better.
we need to get those sewer line to a central location so that the
Okay.
developer, and that
Good.
might help better. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rob.
So they have access.
So they have access.
Yeah,
These
because you
properties
have.
don't have access.
So the city, the square footage wise, what do you have? A mile and a half, 2 miles?
How many miles of sewer line do we have?
I'm just talking about your square
Area.
footage within your city.
Oh.
Area of the
The
city.
whole area is
About 5 miles, 5 miles.
square? We have 432 square miles. So when we put a sewer plant in, that's why I just want to understand why we can pass the cost on to those who get in and why you can't. That's I guess my question.
When you charge tie-in fee to hook up to the sewer lines,
Is it enough?
if we, meaning the county, have paid for the sewer lines through this process, then when they hook up to the sewer line, is it at a I don't know how to say this, profit neutral thing? Is just the cost for their hooking in there, or is there monies in there to go toward the original project as well? And again, is the sewer department gonna benefit twice? Once they didn't pay to put it in to begin with, let's say. I mean, you did, you're a taxpayer just like me and everybody else here. So it was paid for to begin with, and then when the property owner comes in, or the developer decides to tie in, and there's a fee, does that fee just cover the basic expenses, or is it like you would do with if somebody was building on an existing road right now?
It's a very fair question because we went through the whole process and increased our rate structure. I
To
think
accommodate.
Matt can answer that, if you would, Matt.
Since we're using residential incentive district, that's one thing we would want to make sure didn't happen, that we weren't charging people twice or had, so that's one thing we had to account for before we would decide, do we want to charge a sewer tax and how much should it be?
Okay, that's fair enough. Somebody's gonna ask us, or somebody's gonna ask me, maybe, and
Well, I think we all need to go to Chardon and express our concerns, especially on the longevity of this thing, that maybe we can get it collapsed into a shorter period of time. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I think many of our individuals here, department heads and people who have other levies that are out there, they see problems on the horizon, and they know now how difficult it is. We all know.
Yeah, for sake of organizational purposes, if you could let us know in
Who's coming?
advance who would be coming, so we can schedule it, so
We will
we're
do that.
out of there by 1 o'clock in the morning.
We do appreciate
do you have
your
enough room
candor.
up there? I mean, I know how big
Yeah,
your
they're-
chambers
oh,
are.
they're
It's like
big.
this, if people show up,
It's
or,
bigger than this.
We do.
Yeah,
What's
that's
the date
bigger
of
than
that
this.
meeting
It's the second Thursday of.
It's
the 12th.
Oh, it'd be December 12th?
Yeah.
I'm out of town.
That's the final reading.
Oh, I'm here.
Excuse me, what time will that meeting start?
6:30 the meeting starts.
I appreciate your candor, I appreciate the civility in which you ask your questions, all of you. It really makes a difference. And we certainly want to come up with a solution that'll work, and we hope that you are open to that.
That's why we're here.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Anyone? Gina, you didn't have your hand up, did you? You gotta be careful, this is like when you're bidding. Put your hand up, you got it's yours. Sold.
You're scratching your ear, you put
Gotta
the
be
call.
careful how you do
Bought the
that.
easy button there.
Thank you, Virginia, for coming, we appreciate it. Okay, now we're gonna move on to another great subject. The next subject is regarding the proposed trail through Chardon. I would preface this with, the Maple Highland Trail is a trail that extends from Concord, and it goes right on through half of Geauga County, which would make this an asset for Geauga County. It doesn't hit our western end of our town, but it does hit our eastern end quite well. In the past, this has gone through the NOACA, the MPO in Cleveland, which is comprised of 5 counties in the city of Cleveland. This is federal money that is earmarked only for bike trails and cityscapes, things like that. It is not things that affect our roads and bridges. NOACA, 90% of their money goes for roads and bridges. This is a small portion of it. Whether you agree with it or not, this has been passed unanimously by NOACA many times with the former board, which included Bill Young, Tracy Jemison, myself, and then the next board, Tracy and myself. There has been some objections, but to this goal here, Chardon has been, they were the people who supported this and sponsored this through NOACA, and they have won the amount of money to extend this trail, which will connect the Maple Highland Trail to the north, come across 5th Avenue, Center Street, and over to Water Street, but it will not connect on to 44 because that's another section. I believe it's around 620-some thousand, but that has been earmarked to Chardon. It has been voted to Chardon. It will only go to them. Now, if they don't do it, I think they will do it, but if they don't do it, that money would only go back into more bike trails like the canal, the trail by the canal, the towpath, other bicycle trails somewhere in Northeast Ohio. It will not go to roads and bridges in any event. Okay, so having said that, we have a property that extends right by the car washes. If you go there where the Joey's Plaza is, we own that beautiful building there that looks like it should be tore down. Used to be, I think our water resources used to use it, but there's a small section that is asked by the city of Chardon for us to give them the right of way to incorporate a way to get to the trail. Now, whether they take that access or not, I'm certain they probably have other avenues of access. They could go with this. So this is something that's been brought to the board for voting. So if anyone from Chardon would like to speak to this, this is your time. I ask that you give your name and where you're from.
Robert Lasko from Chardon, been here since '66. I and my neighbors, friends, we feel this is a total unnecessary waste of money and another tentacle of the federal government. Once you accept money, you are indebted to the federal government. You will be told what to do with that money. You will be told what to do with everything that you have accepted, that you pay for with that money. It's Agenda 21, and that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lasko. Mr. Sharp?
Randy Sharp, City Manager, Chardon. Commissioner Smeedy had requested what the actual distance was of that easement.
Would you
at the
please
last
stand
meeting.
so we could? Yeah.
Commissioner Smeedy requested the actual distance of the easement. At the last meeting, we did not have that for
Yes.
her. It's actually 2 parcels. The northerly parcel is 294.5 feet. The south parcel is 156.0. So it's a total of 450.5 feet. Translated into miles is 0.0853 miles. 0.0853 miles. And I believe you did get the crash data that you requested?
Yes, we did.
For those streets. I think that was the extent of what related to the bike path.
Does anyone hear the crash data up there? You want to read that?
Yeah.
Because Mr. Spindleri requested this.
Yeah,
And,
there's a hard copy of that.
Okay, I would just try to read some of this. There was not conducted by the Maple Highland Trail Project. Performing a traffic impact analysis is not appropriate for this type of project. Because they're not impacting the roadway or lane configuration with the trail, the traffic impact analysis are normally only performed when a new development is proposed. New traffic is being generated or anticipated to be generated by new development. But they have attached the map, and they did get some summaries here. The crash data shapefile was provided by NWACA. ODOT is the data source. ODOT is the Ohio Department of Transportation. Okay, the summary goes like this. There is no mid-block crashes reported from 2010 to 2012 on Fifth Avenue. That is a road not that heavily traveled. The second is there is no mid-block crashes reported from 2010 to 2012 on Center Street. Okay, next is there are 16 mid-block crashes reported from 2010 to 2012 on Water Street. And they are circled on red in the attached map, which we don't have in front of us, but they're saying in this area, there were 3 crashes in 2012, 8 in 2011, and 5 in 2012. This is 2010. This is very insignificant compared to the traffic counts shown below from 2008. 8 of the 16 crashes occurred in driveways and not within the roadway. 3 of the 16 crashes happened while people were trying to park their vehicle not within the roadway. None of the crashes were alcohol or drug related. And this came from Michelle Johnson. So that is our data on the crashes. And oh yeah, there is a, if anyone would like to see, there is a picture of that. I'll leave this right up here.
Michelle is here if you have any questions regarding those commissions.
Okay, it was brought to our attention that Chardon had a plan for the bike trail, an alternate route method of going by Mel Harder Park and bringing it on. Why don't you give us that discussion about the alternate path?
Well, 10 years ago, or whenever you had a group that was doing a study of the proposed bicycle path, not a multi-purpose trail, but that's semantics, but I thought it was supposed to come in where it is now in the north part of the city, come through, and it was either going to go by the Catholic Church or along Bridgewater or somewhere along there, cross over onto the school's property, go across Maple Avenue on school property, and whether it went down the hill on school property or went to your property where the chalet is and ran down toward the creek and ran over toward Grant Street Extension and where you built your new buildings down along there, and then crossed Route 6 somewhere out near NEO Electric, went behind NEO, crossed Chardon Windsor in the neighborhood of Mel Harder Park, or even if you could go to the east a little bit where the driveway for the Meadowlands Trail is, that would take it out of the part of the city that's, congested. And yes, you still have to cross streets, and yes, there's probably an argument that could be made for both 6 and Chardon Windsor, that the speed might be higher. The visibility is also greater. And that was with some firm that you guys had hired. It could have been 8 or 10 years ago. I don't know. I know I was on the school board at the time, and we saw no problem with running it across our property somewhere. I mean, we have a lot of property, or I'm no longer there. I mean, they have a lot of property there that's could be utilized. That would seem more like a bike path to me, because if you're riding a bike path, theoretically you're doing it for enjoyment, exercise, and so on. And the current route, it appears to be more of a sidewalk than it is a tool for physical fitness. I mean, that's just an untrained developer like myself looking at that going, I don't know where. Now, there may be some considerations that may have been dumped early, some years later, and I don't know why.
Yeah, that was, I think, back 8 years ago when the whole conversation just started. I think you might be referring to the Center for Bikeable and Walkable Communities initiative, which was the very first dialogue. And that was a exercise of throw it up, anybody, where do you think it should go? It was all over the board, and that was one of the options at that time. Since then, it went through two different planning stages, the Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative study, and then the city actually had a bicycle and pedestrian study with focus groups that met and redefined everything to get to the trail to where it is today. And it is a 10-foot wide multimodal trail that would connect the two trailheads of the Geauga County Trail, which I don't know if those were in existence when we first started this whole dialogue.
No.
Probably conceptually, but probably not in reality. I mean, I think ever since they took the ties out and the slag, it's been a concept that it would become.
So the alignment was studied in that group and then brought to council for that pedestrian and bike plan.
I mean, recognize there's no perfect answer. I mean, anywhere you go, it's not a perfect answer. Now, there was a question brought up a couple weeks ago about horses on that trail, and if memory serves me correct,
Yes.
someone said yes, they could be on that trail, and yet someone from the park board tells me horses are not allowed on their trails. So I don't know. I'm just saying, okay, so you get to ride from Fifth Avenue to Park Avenue and turn around and ride back. If that in fact is true, and I'm asking if you know about that, there's an exclusion on the.
It's multimodal, I would think.
Michelle Johnson with Environmental Design.
Yes.
The people maintaining the trail, once it's built, have the authority to regulate any type of horse activity. So if the park district, once they have built their trail, has decided that they don't want the horses, that's up to them. That's a maintenance issue essentially.
Okay.
So it does seem a little silly that someone might drive to Chardon and go up and down this little section. It is up to Chardon once built, because it is a non-motorized activity. They could pass the same legislation, posting a sign that says no horses. Most likely one would probably not do that, knowing you can't go very far, but that is up to the maintainer of that trail.
Okay, that answers my question, because I'm hearing, yeah, we can ride on the multi-purpose trail, but we can't ride on the two trails that feed it, and it's like, really? That
Horses
does.
don't like paved trails either, so those people that.
Or traffic.
Or traffic.
They like
But in
song.
general, they don't like the paved trail. So people that are gonna actively go out for recreation and use the horse just on a riding trail is actually gonna go to a more natural setting. It's not something that's really natural for a horse to be walking on pavement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I guess I have a question. If we had asked for some kind of remuneration for that 405 feet, do we have any idea of what kind of cash would that be to the county? Matt?
Mr. Committee, Steve Bianchi, Planning and Zoning Administrator, Chardon. The approximate value, if you guys would request for compensation, it's going to be pending the appraisal review process, but it's
Okay.
around $60,000 right now.
I think that, at this time, I don't know if we can, make a judgment, because I think the board I think we have three different opinions here. And if we wanted some kind of remuneration for that, I think that would have to go to your council, is that correct? I mean, you couldn't make that decision.
The value right now, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, there is money in this project for
For
right
that,
of way.
right.
So it's already in the project.
Right.
Built in, so it would actually, and as a property owner, you have the right to be compensated for the property.
But you'd still have to pass a resolution at your next meeting to determine whether it's going to be 35,000 or 60,000 or whatever number.
No.
Don't you have to have a legal precedent to do
It
that
would be the
with?
appraised value, and the council already adopted the budget for 2013 that had money in it for these properties.
We want it all.
That is part of the federal checks and balances system. That's part of the reason ODOT and the federal government, they have people checking these appraisers to make sure that this is assessed for a fair market value. Because we are using federal dollars, this is part of the process, because there are other properties that happen all the time for this type of activity that get bought out. So that's something, it's just part of the acquisition process, there are internal via ODOT and federal highway checks and balances, making sure that this is a fair market value, that someone's not trying to give you more or less money than you deserve for this area.
So you're saying we would realize a $60,000?
I believe it's 62 and some odd change, correct? We'll be able to do it for you.
Now, earlier discussions, I thought it was brought up, and I don't even really remember how much land's there, and I know there's some extenuating circumstances on that land. It was thrown out, I don't know how seriously or not, whether the city would be interested in buying the whole parcel and using that as a parking area and a starting point for bicycle traffic. Folks who may drive into the city, park their car, take their bike, go north, go south, go wherever, come back, then partake of maybe the retail areas in the city, because they, you know, I jokingly said, if you don't buy something you can take in your stomach, you know, you're not going to buy anything if you're riding the bike in and out of town. I mean, you're not going to ride down to the thing without holding a lamp.
You've never been
Wait,
on a bike
before you
ride.
talk about that great
To
property.
answer the question.
Yeah,
The city's not in any position to purchase the entire parcel.
Okay.
So that's not on the table, and I can only speak as president of council.
Right, right.
I don't think there's 7 votes to acquire that property. And if there is a trail head, so to speak, that could be used, we already own the property on Park Avenue that can be used for that purposes.
Okay.
For that purpose, and
Similar
that is under discussion.
use.
See what I see here, you know, I think we would be amenable to coming up with a fairly fair price if you consider the 60,000 plus maybe a little bit more to take that property. And here's what I think would be good for you folks. That property over in Park is a lot more valuable than that property over there on Center.
Well, I don't think we'll agree with you on that.
Oh, I think so.
It's right in the middle of the commercial area, I don't think we'll agree.
Uh,
But anyway, that's not in
Fair
the
enough.
foreseeable
Fair
future
Okay, well,
at all.
that was, you know, a question.
But 62,000 is obviously the price for the property.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Nancy MacArthur, Vice Mayor of City of Chardon. As you know, all the other landowners that have property that would fall within the alignment of the bike path have either agreed to or are willing to donate the property needed for the easement. So hearing that and addressing safety concerns that I think we have, address that, I would like to hear from each one of you as to any objections you would have to being paid for the property, a fair value, and if you have any other objections.
Well, I'll start. My objection isn't with the bike path. My objections are with the location of the bike path, which may not be, it may be too late to reverse course there. But as Mr. King said, you know, he's not interested in that piece of property. Well, that piece of property, in conjunction with the other 2 that are for sale near the corner, would be a desirable piece for some developer. And if, from my perspective, if I agree to put something in the backyard of a potential buyer, and the potential buyer says, I don't want that in my backyard, then it may spoil the deal with someone to buy that. When and if that happens is Lord only knows, but it's difficult to take an asset and then it's like selling the mineral rights to your farm and then want to sell the farm. And then the guy says, well, I don't want to buy the farm because I don't have the mineral rights to the farm. If it's not conducive to what a buyer has in their plans, then we've shot ourselves in the foot. I understand that it's within the setback, so it can't be, nobody can use that 10 feet. It's right along the edge of the property line, and I thought I heard 15 or 20 foot setback in the city sideline or back line or I don't want to quote the building code, but it was a relatively small number, and so the value of that, quite honestly, I'm surprised it's 62,000, but
I'm surprised too.
yeah.
I think it's good.
I mean, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying.
Like, can I speak to the other side of that? For all you know, it could actually increase the value of that property. You have no knowledge, you're bringing your own personal
Well,
view
it may, if there's someone there that's gonna develop it for, that, you know, if it's a doctor's office or something, I don't know that it would, because then again, you know, that's one of those intangibles, and it's difficult, and, you know, when I auditioned for this job, I said my vision is not Friday, it's 30 years, you know, and I don't want to do something that you know, is short range without a lot of soul searching. That's my position. You asked, that's where I am.
Hi, my name's Tom Michael, and
I wanted to hear from the other commissioners.
okay.
Sorry.
My position is this: I went to NOACA to try to reverse the funding on this program because I didn't believe that this is proper use of our funding and our proper use of our money. NOACA is based on gas tax. The majority of the funding that program is for roads. If we were talking about possibly in Middlefield, maybe putting an expansion to some horse and buggy paths on the road to be able to relieve congestion and to improve roads where the use is actually horse and buggies, it would have been something that I probably would have supported. But my position then was this is not the focus. We've got problems in a lot of areas for our roads that we can't get paid for because we can't afford to pay for these new areas to be funded. So we're struggling in many areas, but yet we're putting bike paths in that, you know, I don't know how many people rode their bike here today, but you know, this is not sunny California, just like I had spoke about it at NOACA. We're in northern Ohio and we have inclement weather, you know, for a lot of part of the year, and it comes down to the point of common sense and reality. And my second thing to add to that is the amount of calls that I received from people that are not too concerned as far as this expansion right now, but where are they going to get imposed on for the next set. And that's the whole thing is just people are tired of it, and I work for the people, I listen to the people, and the outcry has been, I have not received one call that has said, you know, please vote for this, but I've probably received 70 or 80 of them, and physically talking to them over the weekend that are 100% opposed to it.
And I'd like to speak to your concern about the federal dollars. And for the record, I actually voted against funding it with the NOACA dollars because I very much believe that the federal government is broken. However, I think your fight here in this regard belongs in DC, not in the city of Chardon.
I understand what you're saying, but I guess it starts at home. If we stop taking these dollars and everybody stops taking them, it basically will send a message. And at this point in time, you know, we continue to just be a vacuum of dollars. The programs only continue to develop larger and larger.
Does the county take any other federal dollars through block grants or any other way?
We do have some things.
What about the airport?
The airport does.
Okay, and
But
how do you justify taking those dollars?
there's all people that are in this county, they actually, you know, they fly. Part of your airline ticket actually is placed into an FAA account, which in turn is placed into those funds. And for what our airport does and for the services that it provides, and it has an economic base and an economic structure, and for the minimal amount that we take comparison to what everybody else is taking, it's very minimal. And that's basically how that whole FAA we have to follow a lot of their guidelines under the FAA for the airport. So if we're gonna follow their guidelines, then they're funding us to allow us to fund it. But as far as the bike path goes, my position is I don't support it.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, in the last 9 years, Geauga County has received over $42 million in federal funds for our roads and our bridges. 90% of the money that comes through our MPOs from our gas tax goes to our roads and bridges. This money is federal money that has been allocated by Congress for bike paths and for streetscapes and things like that. I believe that when you talk about, and with all due respect to my colleague here, when you talk about our weather, I have recently taken a trip all the way up to Nova Scotia and up to Newfoundland, and I can tell you, all the way up, starting from Boston, Vermont, New Hampshire, Montreal, Quebec, back down to Maine, and Connecticut again, and Boston. They have bike trails, New York, New Jersey. They have bike trails all over. I went to Harvard. They have a row of bikes there that you rent. In Boston, you rent a bike. It's $100 a month. You go from this point to that point, so they keep the traffic off the road. They do it in New York. They do it in New Jersey. And I got to tell you, the weather in Boston and New Jersey and New York and Quebec is pretty rough. They kind of think, Quebec thinks we're kind of balmy, is what they told us. There's lots of bikes there, bikes all over the place. Big cities are doing this, they're doing it all over. I am not a biker, I do not have a bike, I'm a swimmer. I'd like to see pools, but I can understand the economic development that a bike trail can bring to a city and to the environment in the city. I saw it all over my trip, I saw it everywhere. It's, in fact, Boston and New York, and I found this very odd, they have pianos outside for people to come on their bike, sit down and play the piano. Now, it sounds like a weird thing, doesn't it? But believe me, it's a big thing, and this is how they bring people into their cities and the people are living there. We have voted on this at Nowaka. It has been overwhelmingly voted by 5 counties. The city of Cleveland was voted by the Board of County Commissioners and most of our board last year, and I think that this would be an economic boom for Chardon. I don't know where they're going to get the rest of the money. Maybe they won't get the rest of the money, but I don't think this is going to hurt. This money has already been allocated. Whether we say yes or we say no, they will find a way to put it in. And I think it's an economic tool for Chardon.
I'd like Mr. Michelson to be heard, but Blake, can answer your question about the property and stuff. I guess you can always find ways to say no. I think in this instance, it's important to look for ways to support it. The city is guaranteeing $80,000 of our own money to complete that bike path. And I've said this time and time again, and I understand all the debates. This is a good project, and I think that not taking the opportunity is going to be something that we on council have faced time and time again. In 10 years, people are going to look back and say, why in the world did you not do this? This is a great opportunity to make it happen, and this is a classic case. If you don't do it now, it'll be an opportunity missed. I don't think it's going to affect your property. Advanced Auto Parts let us put the bike path right up against their building. It's going the back of Ball Rubber. We're going to be able to complete it down through Chardon Oil. I think you can come up with a lot of negatives, but I think you can find far more positives to this to justify the project. And I think that's how it has to be looked at. It is beneficial for everybody.
Trust. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to get my 2 cents in.
Who are you?
I'm Tom Michael. I'm Chardon Memorial Board and longtime resident of the county. And as far as I'm concerned, this project is a county project. It's, Chardon has stepped up to the plate to make this a better product for the county. And we talk about economic development. We talk about getting tax dollars in here. This is a great way to do it. The funding is from Geauga granted, but it is specifically for this type of product. And if we don't step up and go forward with this, it's obvious that a board member is not in favor of this, and I think that you're living in a vacuum. Now, you say 70 people talk to you. Well, I tell you what, there's 95,000 people in this county, and I guarantee you, if you were to put that on the ballot, they would go for it, and they would be unanimous. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Bryant?
Hi, my name is Tom Bryant, and I'm Vice President and Director in Chardon Tomorrow, in charge of economic development. And I will tell you, we spoke earlier about the 500 homes that were proposed to be built. There needs to be something that raises the quality of life for a developer to say, yes, I can go ahead and buy those, and I can bring individuals in who will pay for those. A bike path will raise the quality of life in the city of Chardon. That alone makes it a positive move forward way. And the fact that as it brings people in, day trippers, people that would come into the city of Chardon itself for our brick and mortar people, makes it even more attractive.
Mr. Mullen?
Yeah. John Malin, Chardon City Council. I would submit that this project is 80% funded from government above us. We have nothing to say about that. And the real world is that if we don't take it, it's going to go someplace else. 80% we get. We only have to pay for 20. Whether you agree or disagree with the bike path, I don't think it's makes sense to not put it through based on what is really happening. Now, the administration may change in a few years, and the money won't be available, and the top people in government may feel like Congressman or Commissioner Spindolari feels, and so that'll all change. But right now, this is our opportunity. Thanks.
There's a young lady back there.
Miss, Sir? Sir, would you
Joe
give us...
Rodriguez, I'm a Chardon Township resident. Something that hasn't been really addressed is the use of that bike path. I'm an extremely avid biker, and when that bike path out towards Grandview Golf Course got built, and I rode on it, I just shook my head and said, this facility isn't going to be used. Now that was many years ago. I've been on that bike path constantly with a group of friendly bikers. The participation and use on that path and on the path north of the city is unbelievable. The people riding bikes, walking, rollerblading. You have adults that are taking their children, running, I'm sorry. I have bad knees. The people who are taking their children in strollers, they have their children in their pull carts behind their bikes. They even put their dogs in their baskets or on their bikes. It's an extremely crowded bike path now. You hear the complaints, 80-some complaints. You don't want the money. The problem is too many people never call up and say, hey, this is great. You'll always hear the negatives. Those people who are using that bike path are appreciating it, and they're from all of Geauga County, not the city of Chardon. I live in the township.
So we'll look into it before we agree to it.
I'm part of Geauga County. It's a fantastic facility. You connect those two bike trails, and you're going to have, even with your own government offices, people who are going to be able to use that bike path to possibly do business with your government offices, either by walking or riding their bike or however they can without using their car. It's a great facility.
Thank you.
The young lady.
Where's the young lady? I can't see you, ma'am.
Well, she's behind
Okay,
Randy.
give your name.
That was my father.
Okay, we're sorry.
Once a child, always a child. I will always. All I'd like to simply say is
Your name, sir, ma'am?
Cindy Suzinski. I'm a resident of Chardon Township.
Suzinski. Okay, that's why you look familiar.
Yes. We have used it since the beginning. I have ridden on it, walked, biked, my kids have been on it. I would absolutely love a safe way to get from one to the other.
through town. Unfortunately, motorists aren't always willing to share the road with us cyclists. And yes, it may only be for a short period of time. We generally ride about 5 months out of the year, but we absolutely love it. And so, Commissioner, I'm asking you, as your constituent, would you please vote for it, seeing as it sounds like it's only one of the 26 properties that right now is having a problem.
We're only voting for the right of way, understand?
Correct.
You guys got the money.
Correct. But it sounds like everyone else, according to Ms. McCarthy here, has already said yes, they would go ahead and either donate or be subsidized for the use of the property through the right path.
Okay, Mrs. Thank you, Mrs. Susan. Sir?
Commissioners, my name's Tom Nolfi. I live in Chardon. I've used that bike path before. It was a bike path when it was just a right-of-way for nothing. I rode my bike on it. And it's wonderful to see it. And I would just mention two things. I don't think it really should be called a bike path. I think it's a narrow park. Because when I use it, I see people walking, all ages. I see the cross-country team running on it. And I would just like to ask, because I've supported every one of you there, and I'd just like to ask to keep in mind a really, really good man who, Chip Henry, who lost his life riding a bicycle on a regular street. You would allow to keep people off streets. And I would just like to ask you to keep his name. When you consider voting, you might be able to keep one person off a dangerous situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. How often, every time I see someone riding along a major highway, I always think of Chip. Yes, sir?
I read the proposal after the last meeting, and I guess I didn't understand a little bit of it. I reread it. What you're voting on, or what you're asking us to vote on, what you're proposing is, like, let's say it's phase 1 of this path, which runs from Fifth Avenue to Water Street.
Right.
And that costs about $620,000, I believe, somewhere in there.
Plus another 80.
No, I think that's total.
Just for that phase?
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but that includes your $80,000 match, isn't it?
No.
Yes.
Yes?
It's like 5 something.
The match is a little more than that, but
No,
yeah,
it's a
that's
little more than
everything.
that.
Well, it was 580 maybe. It was 580 and then you had a match.
We had to match 20% of the total cost,
I
so.
thought it was 620, and you're 80. I thought it was like 7.
620 total.
620 total for that first phase.
And 100 something is it.
And then for the second phase, which is projected to run from, so let's say Arby's, across around to the end of the existing bike path on South Street. I thought I saw, you can correct me please, that it's that much is estimated for that cost as well, for that side?
Well, Director Michelle.
We do not have an estimated cost yet. That is something that we are actually actively working on, that we are just authorized by the city of Chardon. Before they go in and actively build this, they want to know what that cost is going to be. That should be done early 2014. That's something that we are just starting to work on now for conceptual alignment and a conceptual cost.
And then I read again in there that phase was likely to be completed in 2018, 2019. Is that, did I remember seeing those numbers on that sheet of paper?
That would be the earliest.
The earliest.
Yeah.
So if we take action on this bike path, if we spend, it's a $620,000 project that will allow the people to come in from north of town to essentially Burger King, and then they'll need to make their own way over to South Street for 4 to 5 more years. And to address the gentleman, Mr. Nolfi, I believe, yeah, we all miss Chip Henry a lot, but it needs to be noted that he was riding to or from a bike path when he was hit on a public street, And so if you have a bike path that is gonna terminate in the middle of the city, someone is, God forbid, but I mean, the opportunity is there for a tragedy to happen in the city. I would be much more agreeable if you could go from point A to point B without stopping somewhere in between.
Just as a side note, I would trust 95%, I'm just guessing, gut level, that 95% of the bikers will use our sidewalks to get down to the other
Yeah,
trunk. I don't
that's
see them on the
sidewalks there.
street. That area on Water Street is fully sidewalked, so people can use the sidewalk.
Yeah, that again,
We
Park
could use them
Street,
now
you
anyways.
mean Park Street.
And it was a funding decision. Funding that was available was, I think, capped at around 600,000 was the cap of the funding.
Okay, so that's
So
the
why
reason
the
it
decision
wasn't
was
done
made
as one
to do
project.
Phase one, knowing that we'd get the funding and then to move on phase two.
Okay.
Perfect world, we would love to do the whole thing all at one time.
There was also perceived environmental issues, knowing the type of properties that we had, Chardon Oil being one of them. You had to do a full environmental assessment, which we cleared phase one, no problem. And that's part of the reason why we chose the northern instead of the southern, because we wanted to make sure that we knew what all environmental issues might be at that time, which have been cleared and have been insured. So we went with the more complicated piece, and Randy is correct, they were capped out. There wasn't a choice to go after more money than that at that time. So between the environmental concerns and knowing what money was available maxed out at that point, those two factors together were part of the reason why we couldn't go all the way down to 44 at that time.
And I just have one more comment for the gentleman from Chardon Tomorrow. He stepped out into the hall, and I take exception that we in Geauga County need to improve the quality of life here. I think it's pretty darn good the way it is, and apparently a lot of other people who moved in the last 40 or 50 years to Geauga County felt the quality of life was pretty fine too. Could it be better? Always. It could always be better, but it's.
That's my point.
Okay, I just, I'm like, I like it.
I just wanted to make the point that currently the bike path is under construction north of the city, which will
Right.
bring
To
it to
connect,
Fifth.
so it will
So it'll
connect
stop
that
there
way.
at Fifth unless we do phase one, which would then just bring it a little bit farther through, and then stop, like you pointed out. But currently, it also stops and starts at South. So this connection, even if it takes us till 18, will eventually provide the entire route for people to use.
Okay, sir?
I'm Gary Stevenson from Chardon Township, and I do appreciate your fiscal watchdogs, and believe me, nobody's ever accused me of being a liberal. With that said, I do ride in the bike paths. I wrote to the Chessie system in 1983, 30 years ago, as a dream 30 years ago. They might donate this land. I hoped it had happened 30 years ago. I do think it improves the quality of our life. Libraries improve the quality of our life. Airports improve the quality of our life. It's one more component. While I like you watching our dollars from one taxpayer, this is something I do support. I think it's a great addition. Thank you to Chardon Village.
And to add to that, I have no problem with that, but it's
Yeah.
a situation where when we set priorities in place first, I have no problem with what you're saying. But when we have roads in this county that need attention and cannot get the funding to do that, I'm never going to say that this is a smart decision to take and have risk on the roadways that are unsafe because of funds, and we're putting money into a seasonal, quality of life.
Mr. Spindler,
Gentleman here.
your argument about using these funds cannot be used for anything else.
I
do
understand that. So the system is broke.
It
And then I
is,
guess we need to fix it.
and I challenge you to fix it where it originates in Washington. In a perfect world, I would like to see most of our money stay in Geauga County and not go to the federal government and not go to
Absolutely.
Columbus.
Right.
I'm with you.
And I think when Ralph's talking about the roads, he's talking about a lot of the roads that are within township boundaries, and that, it doesn't allow us as a county to give money to those township roads. And that's where, therein lies the problem, because each
So talk to
township.
Mr. Joyce.
Yeah,
Go
they-
talk to Mr. Portman.
Yeah.
That's where your argument
Exactly,
needs to go.
but township roads, that's a problem, and I know as a township trustee, that was one of our main priorities, and we had about, we had many miles of roads, and we just made it a priority. But other townships don't have that kind of money, and it makes it more difficult for them. So I understand what Ralph is saying.
Just a side comment
Sir?
about this being seasonal. It's not
No,
seasonal, it's
it's not
year round.
seasonal. Yeah.
I cycled 12 months last year on the trail. I cross-country ski it, because the
They
park
do it.
district keeps it in shape to cross-country ski it. It's a year-round trail, it's not just seasonal.
The gentleman with the.
Excuse me, I'm Bob Cromwell, I live in Chardon. To echo what Nancy said, that was really going to be the basis of my comment. We cannot change what NOAC is going to spend the money on now. Fight your battle where the battle can be fought, while giving the people in the county and the city the ability to have an improved quality of life. Blake, to your point about it's a pretty good place to live, absolutely. I just made the same trip that Mary did, all the way to Newfoundland.
Yeah.
You should see what the people are doing in Nova Scotia and PEI
Unbelievable.
to pull people in to ride a bike. Do a Google search on the number of people, and there's a bike path that's been developed in West Virginia, the number of people that ride that path every weekend, and the economic driver that it is to have those people come to town. Think about it. I understand. You think you're a fiscal conservative?
We can tell you this man.
Remember me too?
He squeaks, right?
But your fight is not with the county.
When's the
Your
last
fight
time
is
you went
not
down
with the
to
city.
Nowaka?
What?
When's the last time you were at Nowaka fighting it then?
It's not
Or
my
if you-
issue.
That's not
I don't
the
have
fight
a problem
I
with
understand
it.
it, but if you're in
I don't have-
agreement with me,
Where were you when the money was decided 2 years ago?
I wasn't elected.
Exactly.
Right.
Nor
But
was I.
But
Your
I did-
issue is not with the people. Your issue is in Washington.
I understand that.
And I voted for you.
And I appreciate that, but I'm just saying, is that when do we finally stop this? If we continue to take
Start
it,
it now.
take.
Start your fight.
Our congressman.
But don't hamstring us now.
I'm not hamstringing you.
And by the way, if you want 70 calls, I'll call you 70 times tonight.
I like that.
Put it on speed dial.
Let's get playful. A couple of things. First of all, we have to stop using bad information. I just got the traffic counts from the towpath in Cleveland. We don't talk about economic development. The towpath is the busiest towpath, or the bike trail in northeastern Ohio. They have a total of 400 people on the day. Is that an economic boom? That's not an economic boom. I'm an avid bike rider. I ride my bike on the roads. I don't need a bike trail because they don't go where I want to go. I want to ride my bike practically, not for recreation. I want to get someplace, go shopping, whatever the case happens to be. We have to start using correct information, not selling it based on Obamacare-like emotion. This is not an economic boom. It may be a quality of life thing. It might be good for a lot of people to go out and walk and ride their bikes. But we're using false narrative to sell this project. Now, the bike path is where it is. We have already gotten the money. And so relative to the easement, I'm neutral on that. And so what these gentlemen and ladies up here decide, they decide. But it makes me angry when we use false narrative to sell things. That's what our government constantly is doing with us, and it's wrong. Ralph Spitaleri is absolutely right relative to those dollars. Those dollars are not bike trail dollars. Those are alternate forms of transportation dollars in Nowaka. We could use those for buggy trails in Middlefield and other places. That's an alternate form of transportation. It would get the buggies off of the road, so he's absolutely right. We've just not looked at that. We've not taken a look at that as an alternative.
Well, we have
in Geauga County.
sponsored in the past for buggy trails along our major routes for the Amish, and that can be
You know,
done.
we have a unique
That can be done.
county in Ohio, one of the unique counties, because we have an Amish population, and we're not really looking at trying to take care of them. And we're focused right now on Chardon, because Chardon's looking out for its own best interest, as it should. But we have to start using the correct narrative and start getting facts. When we look at the bicycle trail, and I asked Randy and the team here, did we do projections? How many bikes do we expect to see on these trails? Have we done any traffic counts on the current bike trails? The answer was no, we have not. And so I would expect any professional organization to do projections and to look at what the actual usage may be and base their decisions based on facts, not on some anomalous kind of fiction. And by the way, relative to Nowaka, we have a lobbyist that we're paying to lobby against us in Nowaka. She's lobbying for this kind of bicycle nonsense, and we ought to get her in Nowaka to be lobbying for some of what we're doing in
talk
Geauga
to
County.
her.
So
Okay,
I would love to.
gentlemen.
Steve Turpin, volunteer both for Chardon Memorial and the Geauga Park District. What I do as a bike controller is we count the number of people that we see on the trail. I'm only on that trail sometimes for an hour and a half. I've counted up to 400 people on our little old trail in Chardon. So there's some facts for you.
Okay, well, let's see a document. I
Okay,
got the towpath documentation.
Okay, we don't want to start anything, skip everybody. Okay, are there any other comments, would be, oh, Miss?
Hi, my name's Cindy Heido. I am a Chardon resident, and I've been on the towpath, I've been on the Ashtabula Trail, I've been on the Chardon Trail. I have friends that come all the way from Aurora, Ohio to ride our little bike trail. Out of all the ones in the area, they love it. And they ask me, hey, where should we go to breakfast? Where can we get brunch in Chardon? So when I was on the original committee, the whole point was to bring revenue into Chardon, to have people, just like in Peninsula. You ride the towpath, you get out, you go to lunch, you have a nice lunch, you shop around, you get on your bike and you go back. It brings people into town. It helps the people on the square, it helps the restaurants, it helps everyone in the community. It's a no-brainer.
Okay,
Can I just say one more thing?
yeah, sure, always one more thing.
I think it's been discussed, will help the quality of life in the community. It'll add economic value to the community. It's something that's been in the works for a decade. Whether or not you think the alignment is the best is what has come out of many, many different discussions and focus groups and studies. And we're here for the one piece of the trail that I didn't think was going to be a problem at all. When I thought about how are we going to get this trail to go through, this is not where I thought we would have any kind of an issue. Unfortunately, we are. I think it's what I try to remind council, look 30 years down the line, because you said how many people are currently using it. How many are going to be using it in 30 years when there are more population, when those homes we were talking about earlier, they still won't all be done, but some of them will be done. There's going to be more people here to take advantage of it, to improve their lives, to get out, exercise, frequent the stores that are here, and be still a wonderful, fantastic place for people to live and go and to raise their families. That's about what we're doing. That's all we're concerned about, is how do we improve for everybody in our community. And that's what drives me. And truth be told, I'm a runner. I use it all the time. So.
It's good that you're a runner. Huh? If the board would make a motion on this, and I think we would like to have some kind of remuneration for this, in any event, that has to go through our council, which is Laura LaChapelle. So we're not going to be able to, if the board wants to vote, I guess they could vote, but I think we need to think about this and whether we want this remuneration and pass it by our council to see what I've been told by her. She came up and talked to me a few minutes ago. If you haven't seen her, she did. So I would ask Ms. LaChapelle to give us that counsel and explain to us what would be done and what could be done, and at that time we would make that vote.
It's a relatively simple process. We just need something to memorialize.
To memorialize,
the
I think use the right
compensation that's being
word.
provided. Obviously, I need to talk to the city. We'll agree on the language, any amounting. Of course, the board needs to decide the amount as
Right.
well. I mean, that's what's proposed. I know it's a lot to kind of digest, but that's basically the first step.
Okay, so we will do that. I don't have a calendar here.
Back to your thing, we got a
What do you
meeting
got?
on the 17th and the 19th. We got, there's one on the 12th, but that's,
You got one on Thursday. On the
But you're not gonna be,
You got
we
one on
need
the 12th.
everybody here.
Yeah,
yeah,
and you're not gonna be here.
well, I'll be here on the 12th, but that's not the issue.
But Ralph, are you gonna be here? Yeah, Ralph's gonna be here, okay. We could do it on the 12th. Can you get things ready for us? that
Council,
quickly?
City of Chardon doesn't have a meeting until the 12th, so I don't know.
Oh,
if it would be an issue.
Yeah, they meet on the 12th,
So you
so
may have
I
to
would
wait
say
until
the
the
earliest that we could do it is the 17th or 19th.
I don't think the city has anything to do with
You don't need
memorializing.
to, you're saying, yeah, but what if we didn't want 62? What if we wanted 162? No, wait a minute. I mean, what if we, no?
The language that we have to vote on, if I remember correctly, it's not here, we have this motion, but the language was in consideration for $1 or something which makes it legal. And until we have something that's,
appropriate.
Yeah, current, appropriate with an actual dollar figure on it, I'm no lawyer, but I watched him on TV and
So,
can't do that.
okay, so is the
Do we have a
17th?
dollar amount?
Wait,
We
wait.
do have a dollar amount.
Folks, is the 17th a good day?
Good day with me.
19th is fine with me.
19th good, that's the 17th?
Either one.
Okay,
Yeah, either
okay,
of
so
those.
on the 17th, then we will make that
Just
decision.
to clarify, because we were going through the federal government, your property is valued at $62,810.
Okay.
That is that easement going along the very far east of the property. Because this is the federal funded program, we can't legally give you more, even if you think you can challenge the appraisal.
You can't, but Chardon could.
I can't comment on that.
No, I mean, isn't that right? I mean, you can't buy the federal dollars, but certainly Chardon could make that decision on their own.
That is something that's up to the city.
True.
But with federal dollars, you can
I get
challenge
that
the
part, yeah.
appraisal
Okay.
and say that maybe it's not fair,
Right.
you think it's worth more than that, but that's already kind of checked within
But I-
itself, done by a third party. But we can't give you more than that. You can ask for less,
Okay.
but not more.
I don't think we'll ask for less. Okay, do we have any other questions here? Okay, I want to thank all of you for your input, for your civility, and for going over all of these questions with us, and I hope you'll be here again on the 17th. So, thank you, Mayor and residents. All right. Great, moving on to 13 then. We have approved and executed resolution 13 to appoint a new member representative from Geauga to serve on the Northeast Ohio Consortium Regional Council.
Not Cox.
Not Cox, it's own cap. You have to appoint. You gotta do that.
What is it?
The items can be pulled at any time.
That's not what they discussed in
Correct.
45 minutes.
Correct, and then they were basically.
I don't care. I
Do you wanna
don't
do
know
it?
when- well, I don't know when their meetings are, but I
It's
can
not
see
all
the first Wednesday of each month. First Wednesday of
It's
each
just
month.
tomorrow. They have a meeting
We have a
tomorrow.
meeting tomorrow.
So that's
You'll
why we
find
need
out.
to do this today.
You have to attend the meeting to know what's in the meeting.
Oh, I've heard that.
That's why we take it. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
how do we do this?
okay, what we're gonna do then is we're going to approve and execute resolution 13-211 to appoint Blake Rare, our representative from Geauga County, to serve on the Northeast Ohio Consortium Regional Council of Government. Yeah.
The resolution states to appoint you as the member representative and Blake as the alternate.
So just perfect.
So if you're okay with that, you don't have to go, Blake can go as your alternate.
Yeah, you can go as my alternate.
And that's just
fine.
until January.
However, so she's gonna be the
She'll be the
representative,
member
But you're gonna
representative and
go.
you would be
and
the
I'll
alternate.
be the alternate that goes until, unless I,
And then in
have an
January,
issue.
you can redecide.
right, okay.
It's only 1 month.
That's fine.
Kill us.
So moved. Get this going.
Did Ralph say second?
Ralph seconded it, I did.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
And then Commissioner Rear.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm telling you, get
Oh,
roped in
boy,
where I
that was
want to.
enthusiastic.
Yeah.
That's not my favorite board.
Where do they meet?
I don't know. What do you want to ask?
Oh,
Why you ask so many questions?
They're local, okay. I thought I was driving to
Ask so many
Warren.
questions.
No, this is Portage, Asheville, and Geauga. They generally meet here because we're in the middle.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, that's, I'll be here
Is
anyway.
that a plus? Okay.
Okay.
All right, the next one is we're asking the board to cancel session on Thursday, January 2nd, 2014.
It's a day after the holiday.
Day after that.
Aye. Don't I have to sign?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is our commission requesting the board cancel session Tuesday, January 14th,
Yes.
because the reorganizational meeting will held on Monday, so we won't have a meeting on Tuesday, we'll have it on.
By law, the
Yeah.
commissioners' organizational meeting is always the second Monday of each month.
Oh, second Monday of January.
Of January.
Sorry.
And that's what
for
day is that?
DORC.
We
That's
don't make the
the,
rules.
Thank you.
Just follow.
that's the 13th?
Yes,
Okay, so I've got to move on 15, is that where we're at? I'm
that's
signing.
it, you're.
I'm moving, I'm signing my name, I can't do two things at once.
Sounds like a true politician.
Was it second?
Second, sorry about that.
Okay.
And then Commissioner Rea.
Aye.
I know you're signing. Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sweetie.
Aye. Motion stands approved. Oh gosh, we're getting through this. All right, coming up. Our regular session will be on the 5th, and then we're going down to the joint board at 2. There's also the partners meeting at 4, the big one. The CIC, we're gonna take our dear help here to lunch. Then on the 8th, the 10th, we will be down at CCO Winter Conference. On the 10th is that great meeting, and we're canceling that meeting, that great day, we're canceling because we won't be here. But we do have planning at 7, if we can make it. And then our regular session's at 12, on the 17th, our regular, and the 19th. And that is it. Miss Diane?
Question, where are these wonderful Chardon council meetings held?
At Chardon, in their city council.
On the hill.
On the hill.
On the hill.
You know that white building just below?
Oh,
Community center, right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the motion of all motions?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, guys.
Did you turn that off?
See if the camera's still on.
It's still there.
It probably shut off a long time ago. No, it still says record.